Hey, everybody, we're back. Thank you for joining me for my conversation with Mike Jacob and then Dave Cavall the day before. And we round out our trifecta of great Oaklanders with Allyssa Victory, who's running for mayor of Oakland. This is our second conversation. And I want to thank you very much for joining me. And without any further ado, how's the campaign going?
Well, thanks for having me, Zenny. Happy Women's History Month. It is March, and it's been a little while since we talked last.
Yes.
I'm Allyssa Victory, running for Oakland Mayor. This election is November 8th, 2022. The campaign trail is going strong. We are hosting many events in the coming weeks that are online and in person to be sure that we're engaging with the actual people who will decide this election, that we make sure they know what Victory for Oakland means, that they have a chance to ask me whatever questions they have, talk to me about their concerns, and make sure that I'm hearing them if I'm stepping into this ultimate position of leadership. So it has been very busy. I had to take a short break with the loss of my father over a week ago, but there's so much positive that's pushing me forward right now.
My condolences on the loss of your father.
Thank you.
It's a dramatic thing that have happened. What are you learning about Oakland as you campaign and talk with people and listen?
I'm learning everything. I learn something new every day, that our residents, have so many issues that they're passionate about, and there are a lot. So there's people who are bringing up things around water tables and our environmental justice issues that I don't hear a lot of folks talking about. There's people that are talking to me about what's going on in other cities that we should look at in terms of innovation. So just having conversations with everyday Oaklanders, people who may be frequenting our businesses when I'm around, they already have a lot of knowledge and insight on what's important to them, how they'd like to see it improved, or even have potential solutions that they are offering for me to look into. So every day I'm learning more about what issues Oaklanders really want to see centered in this campaign, and learning from them what resources I can pull in, what groups I can learn from to help get it done. Because I know I'm not an expert in everything. So I love learning from the people who might have been here longer than me, or again, might be experts in areas that I'm not. I'm also just learning about all the unique characteristics of all of our neighborhoods in Oakland. Right? We have 7 districts, but we have neighborhoods that are really cohesive in a few blocks or a certain region. And there's issues that even neighbors galvanize around. I'm in the Mills College area, and even understanding what's happening at the Mills campus, which is a private institution, but serves so many residents in Oakland and the entire Bay Area, has a very strong women-centered, women's empowering history, has the only middle school for only girls that's operating on their campus. And so again, just me getting out and talking to my community about this election, I'm getting so much back and learning about what it has to offer, what different people here have expertise in, and how they want our city to look going forward.
Yeah, and Mills had a great rugby team too. But
yes, I go and hang out at their track sometimes and walk my dogs. Yeah. I want to check out their art museum too. But it is a beautiful space and really, really interesting history.
Are people sharing with you their personal situations? Do you have a feel for what they're going through during the pandemic, and how they're being impacted?
Absolutely. A lot of people are talking about the rent crisis, about it's unaffordable. They work X amount of hours and are still struggling to pay their rent. I can serve in our homeless encampments on a regular basis, providing food distribution and hygiene kits. And I often, will engage in a deep conversation around, is this person working? How long have they been unhoused and living in these encampments? And many of them are working. They're employed. They're working in service jobs. They're working with manual labor. Some of them even work at industries like our port and are still not able to afford even the most basic rents and housing here. So it's very interesting.
That's new. You're saying some of these are Port of Oakland employees?
Yes. Well, I'll say didn't verify exactly what their role was at the port or if the port itself, but they said they work in the port every day. This was a man who was maybe in his 30s that I was serving in the encampments over on West Street in West Oakland. And again, just hearing that like these are people who are, living in their cars or trying to get up every day to make a living, to even apply for jobs, to get job training. And someone who's working at the port, right, is not able to afford housing, was in these encampments. And so again, you never know who you're coming across. Some of the folks I've talked to who are in RVs are young men who are telling me that they're just returning from prison or incarceration, right? And there's no types of safety nets or housing for formerly incarcerated people. They have to just navigate it on their own, even being released during a pandemic, to even understand what the pandemic society is looking like. People didn't know that there were certain pandemic benefits or things that were under moratoriums. And so just talking with people, I see that there's just information gaps. There's wide access gaps. Housing continues to be one of the big issues. Also, people talking to me a lot about school closures. I am in solidarity with our teachers and our students and the Reparations for Black Students campaign. And a lot of people talk to me about the closures since they're in the front of the news so often as of late. And when I explain to people that, the mayor and the city are actually separate entities from our school board and our school district and our school board members, but still that there's ways that we should be partnering to ensure that our youth are not being harmed in this closures process, that the city itself, has failed in a lot of ways to serve our youth with, clean, accessible parks and recreation centers, adequately staffing them, having safe neighborhoods, or we had the Safe Streets program, but a lot of it was, literally just putting up kind of a caution sign and didn't actually make our streets safer for, kids to go out and play and really enjoy their blocks or neighborhoods. So I've been engaging in really interesting conversations around what kind of the limits of the mayor's power is within education, but other ways that our city can and should be serving and filling some of the gaps that our school district is leaving. So it's, again, a lot of the issues that are in the front of the news are in the forefront of our residents' minds. Public safety is always a big one of people that are concerned about what I will do around the police. Some really want me to crack down on crime and issues that are happening. Others understand we have a really complicated, decades-long history with our police department and getting us in line with constitutional policing, with our settlement agreement, and with our oversight structures. And there continues to be kind of a tension around giving more power and accessibility for police to intervene in our lives versus holding them accountable and restricting where we want them to intervene, and providing more resources to other departments or staff to do that. Also, I'll just share one story that I was at a taco truck and I was taking a long time to pay for my food with my team. The man behind me came and paid for our whole order. And I was like, oh, were you just, tired of waiting for me, taking so long to pay? He said, no, like, I heard that you're running for mayor, and I really want to talk to you around the contract and equity issues. That this is a brother who is starting his own security firm, is in the process of setting up his own small business, but is concerned that he'll be locked out of opportunities in the city of Oakland because we have really, really large disparities in how and who we award contracts to, with Black people being at the bottom. And that's documented by our contractor disparator studies along race and gender. And so the things that are kind of coming out of our city, legislative-wise, study-wise, are absolutely being felt on the ground by Oakland residents.
I'm curious. I want to ask, why is it that we don't talk about the city doing capacity building? I go back to when we had something called the Oakland Business Development Corporation that was run by Arnold Bello. Even then, we were good at giving out loans. And unfortunately, we had this habit as a city of using loans as a kind of a tool to judge people with. Now, what I mean by that is this. We still have the Community Economic Development Committee, right? Then loans that we doled out were brought before the committee for kind of a report. And more often than not, it was embarrassing to people who look like us, because we would give these loans and I would go over the spreadsheet and I would say, why don't you just convert this to a grant? And yet, to this day, we don't do that. We have a micro loan program, but no straight out grant program, right? And then when people talk about public banks, which we've already done, Community Bank of the Bay was our first public stab at a public bank until someone figured out that we have to insure the money, and basically the banks would wind up owning the city, okay? And yet people talk about public banks again, and they keep forgetting that, hey, if you're going to use a standard bank model, that's a loan. So you have to use an entirely different model. So at what point do we have a come to Jesus meeting about saying, okay, first of all, we have to build capacity of businesses like the gentleman you're talking about who may not have proper accounting help, or proper insurance, and getting them that so that they have a floor, instead of just giving them money as we've done and said, we gave you money, pay us back, right? Which embarrasses them. And it doesn't help anyone. I mean, when does the circus stop? You know what I mean? That's my question.
Circus stops with me, Benny. I have kind of two track responses to that. One is I do support instituting a strong public banking system. Public Bank East Bay is a community-based org that has been working on researching, supporting state legislation that would allow us to set that up. And they just released their feasibility study for us to establish public banking in the East Bay. And again, public banking is supposed to invest and fund affordable housing development and small business assistance. I would say that the benefits of public banking is that it's public control, so that we can offer loans and things under different and better terms to the public than a corporate private bank may. And the whole intention is to do that, to make sure that we are competitive with private entities, so that we are more public serving and more accessible to everyone. So there will be loans that is contemplated to come through a public banking system, but would still have more relief in terms of, interest rates or, the terms of the repayment than with private banks, and even the ability to forgive easier than private banks may. On the second track is that we have a progressive business tax that has been proposed in council. It will have to go to the voters to pass as a tax. But this progressive business tax was presented by our Blue Ribbon Committee and proposes to tax our largest corporations based on gross receipts. So right now, everyone is paying the same rate, all businesses. So the progressive business tax would charge our largest businesses in terms of the amount they earn at the highest rate, would relieve some of our smaller earning businesses. And they estimate that around $30 million would be generated every single year from that tax, and that tax will go back to fund small business assistance. And so things like giving out grants, having actual business assistance programs, trainings, helping people learn how to incorporate your business, how to sign up for insurance. All of those things are different areas that I would invest our progressive tax dollars into. And so I'm definitely following how it's moving through council now, what people's opinions are about it. No surprise that some of our largest corporations were the first to call in and lobby against the passage of this tax. But this is, again, a people-centered move that would center our local-owned small businesses in Oakland. And a lot of these corporations can certainly afford to pay a bit higher. They're not going to go broke. They're not going to go bankrupt. And they've already made their headquarters in Oakland. And so we want to see a little more investment into the city of Oakland. So those are two tracks that can get at creating more funds to either loan or to straight give grants to our small business industry.
Hey, so let's shift gears and talk about Howard Terminal, as I wanted to do.
Sorry, what'd you say about Howard Terminal?
Oh, I said let's shift gears.
Okay.
What do you sound like I said?
I'm not sure. I thought you asked a specific question. Okay, shifting. Let's shift the gears.
Did the shifting sound like something else?
I wanted to be clear what you said.
Where is your head?
It's in Oakland. I'm ready. I'm shifted over to Howard Terminal, coming from small business discussion.
All right, we are shifting gears.
I know, again, Howard Terminal frequently pops up in our news. Pretty much anytime there's going to be a vote or a proposal of anything. Do you have specific questions around Howard Terminal right now?
I want to know what your view is on it. Yeah. There's no, as I said off camera, there's no right or wrong answer here as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I've spoken about this clearly. I did a 2-hour business podcast with a member of IOW, Trent Willis. I've also spoken to Labor Notes about my position. Again, I spent several months, over 6 months, with our community benefits process on our labor and economic development subcommittee, drafting what community benefits would look like attached to this project. And so I wholeheartedly stand behind any developments, not just Howard Terminal, but any development requiring a strong community benefit component, especially those that have documented negative environmental impacts or racial equity impacts. So I support the project moving forward as long as there will be community benefits attached to it, but it's not really up to the mayor at this moment. There are a lot of different procedural steps that this project has to get over, and all of that burden is on the A's, right? The city is separate from the A's. The A's is the private corporation that's actually owned by an owner. Right, that owner is not just in entertainment, but also owns clothing stores, is invested in our charter schools, is invested in a lot of other business endeavors here. So this is a business negotiation and deal. And in terms of business, we need return on our investment. Investment, not just of any city dollars we put into this. We've already spent a lot of city money and time with consultants, with public town halls, with draft community benefits agreements and meeting with the A's. So we've already spent a lot and invested in this project. We have to see a return that actually meets the community's needs. And the best articulation of those needs and what benefits would look like to really make this investment worth it is the community benefits proposal that we spent almost a year drafting. In not just my subcommittee, but there was housing, environmental justice, a lot of other areas. So it is a bit hard since we're still in the middle of a lot of processes and approvals. There's so many stakeholders involved that have a lot of different interests. My interest will always be in the health and well-being of our people. We know that West Oakland is traditionally been a very toxic area with all of the freeways that have destroyed neighborhoods and that still operate there, and with the current port and trucking and diesel and other particulate matters that is in the air in more higher numbers there. So we already know we have a crisis happening environmentally. Housing wise, they have the largest number of encampments and unhoused residents in West Oakland. So we have to ensure that those issues aren't going to be exacerbated, but that if we have this large corporation with a lot of money and different leveraging, that we get real benefits to help our city address the issues for our people. Not simply building something for new people to come in or for tourists and others to enjoy in our city.
Question. Aren't you concerned, however, that the city side of this included a tax increment financing zone that, if you actually run the calculations, at the minimum would generate $1.6 billion of bondable money, which would translate to an $800 million bond, which by legislation passed October 11th of 2019 would call for the use of that money for any project deemed of community-wide significance around Oakland to be done. Aren't you concerned the city didn't do that? That wasn't the A's to do that. That was on the city specifically. What's going on?
Absolutely. I think, again, the city needs to be currently more in line with what their negotiation position should be, and that is on the opposite side from the A's, and ensuring that we have adequate protections for our public dollars, and this is on public lands, right? So this is an even different layer, that this is not just trying to build something large on private lands.
Ms. Mayor, can I stop you? That's not a public land issue. It is a fiscal issue, okay? Right. And again, ask the question, aren't you concerned that the city of Oakland did not, over the past 2 years, form an enhanced infrastructure financing district A, B, calculate and then report what we've done for generations, tax increment financing calculation, so that we would understand the bond issue that could be released that then would be calculated to pay $532 million for those community benefits, which is what they calculate the cost, all right, for Howard Terminal. My point is, aren't you concerned that the city left its side of the responsibility on the street, literally, undone, and it's still undone to this day? It's not all the A's fault. They work hand in glove. Aren't you concerned that that hand in glove is not being handled by the city?
Absolutely. I am highly concerned. That is one example of where the city is not necessarily doing all of its work and its due diligence on their side to ensure that this is going to be the best benefit for our city. So yes, I'm absolutely concerned about that, the IFD and their calculations, how that was based on, what numbers they were using. I'm also concerned about this EIR that was already certified through our council vote, because there were so many things that were not addressed or not mitigated, and continuing reports came out after that council vote that addressed environmental issues, the grade separation of the railroad tracks that you have to cross to get to Howard Terminal from any part of Oakland. So there are a lot of things that I felt were not adequately addressed, explored, mapped out, and calculated to even reach this point. And again, it's still at this point. Some of this is not in the mayor's hands solely, but other boards, entities, and council. But I am highly concerned, again, about railroading through something that we haven't carefully run the numbers on, that we aren't carefully ensuring is going to mandate community benefits, not with broad language, not with promises, but again, an actual contract that says we will commit to funding these things at these levels from these specific types of revenues or income sources. So yes, I am highly concerned about the gaps that we're already seeing that have developed in the years that we've been in this process. And there's still several steps to go.
And Ms. Mayor, aren't you concerned? I'm asking you just like that, that even though SB 293 Skinner was signed into law on October 11th of 2019, the city did nothing in terms of approaching the county of Alameda to say, hey, we plan to use your share tax increment, until Major League Baseball's commissioner said last year on the 27th of March, hey, we're moving because you're taking too long. And then Mayor Schaaf said, we need the county of Alameda. It took 2 years for them to, I don't know, get their brain right or something. And I'm saying it just like that. And now, Ms. Mayor, we're
It's even more challenging to talk about our relationship and efficient communication with our City of Oakland and our Alameda County Board of Supervisors. We absolutely should have been engaging and talking with them around this project, because they also own part of the Coliseum. Currently had been in negotiation to sell its portion to the A's, which then affects our city, that is public lands, and affects some of the things that are happening at the current East Oakland site. So these things could have been wrapped into those conversations, those discussions, those board meetings. And yes, I am aware that, only recently did our mayor really try to contact the county and get them to buy in. And they had a lot of hesitations, a lot of pause, a lot of questions that are kind of around some of the questions even you have around how is this supposed to be financed? What is the actual financing proposals and plans? So absolutely, I think, again, there's a lot of gaps or delays that, again, I'm not a part of the city right now, but I am running to be in here so we can have more efficient negotiations. We can move all projects along a lot faster and more transparently.
And Ms. Mayor, aren't you concerned that the county has done that kind of calculations for many years? And yet, by your statement, you seem to think that the county has no clue. Aren't you aware of now that the county does have a clue and yet hasn't done anything itself and used the wrong numbers?
I mean, again, I'm not as focused on the county's piece, and the county, has some say in some of these things. A lot of the approvals, again, are going through city council and through other boards and commissions. We just had the Seaport Advisory Committee that made a vote to recommend that will go back to BCBC. So yes, the county is, again, one of so many other stakeholders, actors, and there's kind of questions or pause when you get to all of them. So it is a very large project that, again, we've already invested so much into, but we have to, if we're going to invest so much and really have this overshadow overshadow so much of the city's work and then have it overshadowing counties or the port or all these other entities. It needs to be done efficiently, transparently, and again, with centering what we really want for our city, for our community to get out of it, not just what is the proposals that the private corporation is pushing forward and has already negotiated with their stakeholders.
What, if you were the mayor right now, what would you want to do regarding Howard Terminal? And what are your thoughts regarding the SPAC decision?
What is my thoughts regarding the what decision?
The decision of yesterday. I'm sorry, the Bay Area, the Bay Conservation Development Commission's Special Advisory Commission decision that they made yesterday. So, what are your thoughts about that? To the extent that, maybe I know you've been busy on other things, if it's something I had a chance to really focus on.
We got the summary version and definitely reviewed the final vote, which was to oppose removing port priority designation for the Howard Terminal area. Again, that would have helped by removing the port as having priority in the area. But the Seaport Compatibility Study said that there were, again, many things that were not addressed in terms of how that would offset parking space and other staging space that's necessary for shipping companies, for our trucking industry that's in the port. That there, again, this is an entity that is focused on bay conservation, is focused on what is compatible with what's already at our port, but also with the environment that is there. So again, we're getting, it comes back to, is there adequate environmental protections? Is there adequate mitigation for the current industries that are operating at the port, for the space, the physical space that they need? And I mean, the vote came out saying no, that there was not adequately shown for them to support removing designation for the port to have priority on this space. So again, all those things may change steps in the process, may have to go back or to appeal these decisions. So it gives just a lot of variability, again, in our overall timeline, and so many other stakeholders are continuing to bring up issues that we have to address and mitigate. Again, just approving things on paper does not mean that this will run efficiently or effectively if we let it just start going forward and being constructed. So we have to be so careful. And it seems like every one of these meetings will bring up kind of new issues or hurdles or just questions that we need to really grapple with and have correct information. There's also a bit of disinformation that I feel is happening. Like there's people who are making really extreme statements that nothing's happening at the port. The port is empty. It's a dead port, or Howard Terminal is completely empty. And I live in Oakland. I frequently go to Mayoral Harbor Shoreline Park, which takes the main route through the port. And you can see there's mostly trucking. There's a lot of street erosion in the area, that there are trucks that need to stage in certain parts, and that there's trucks that get spilled over already into our residential neighborhoods right now with the current work and the setup that's happening at the port. Again, we have to adequately plan for the impacts on our community, our environment, even our bay. And so, I respect the decisions of these bodies. Again, they may change then the calculations and the assessment that the city has to ultimately make, and the demands that we place on the corporations to build something that is going to be compatible with our community and with our community's needs.
I'm going to ask you, are you an A's fan?
I am. I mean, I'm a fan of anything Oakland. I'm not, super into baseball, but any type of sports team is who's from Oakland. I went to my first Raiders game through my church when I was maybe 12. Still a fan of the Warriors. A little salty that when I go over to their games in SF now, they're still using Oakland branding. Like Oakland itself is a brand for these teams, even if they move. So yes, I am a fan. And, I have family members who work right now at the Coliseum, who are seasonal staff workers who staff our concerts at the Oracle. So I understand firsthand what the workforce is like, what their benefits in terms of employment are at our current Coliseum. That won't necessarily change. The employer is the same.
You know what? I'd like to see something done. I'm just talking right now. Because I happen to notice on television, the upper decks of the Warriors games, they're generally empty at points. Up there. And I was saying to a friend of mine that I think the real problem is that the new arena, Chase, is not next to a freeway. Whereas, on the Nimitz, you see the big marquee, the game's coming up, you can see there's activity, and it says in your mind, I got to be there, right? You can get right off 66th Avenue, and boom, you're there. Maybe you get a ticket at will call. Maybe you get a ticket from somebody who doesn't need it, in the appropriate area. But my point is, it's it was just this gigantic advertisement that the Warriors were playing. And I think the Warriors made a mistake in moving. I don't know what you think, but I think they made a mistake in moving to San Francisco. What do you think?
I think anyone who leaves Oakland is making a mistake. I think it's shown even by the players who have such a strong connection and commitment to our community, no matter what the team has chosen to do. I'll uplift the Curry family, who has their Eat, Learn, Play nonprofit that is providing a lot of resources to families and to our youth. Aisha Curry has opened a beautiful cafe in downtown Oakland, which has been very supportive on this campaign. So they have invested in Oakland. They invest themselves in the city.
Whoa. She's endorsing? You got their endorsement?
I'm working on it. All I've said is their staff have supported me. I've attended a lot of events at her beautiful space, and it's a really nice, unique cafe that's featured. Are you trying to get the connection, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can never catch her there, but she has amazing people who are working at that cafe, and I was just there this weekend. They were having a small business expo featuring a lot of women, Black-owned businesses. That was amazing to see that pop-ups in her store and giving space to people who don't have their own brick-and-mortar storefronts. So again, they're not only setting up shop and investing, but really investing in ways that we need them to be, that are responsive to the folks that are the most pushed out or the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our communities. So that means a lot more to me, that the players still see value in Oakland, still love the community in Oakland, are willing to partner with us and put in their own work and volunteerism and philanthropy back into our city. So even if the Warriors, again, these are owned by owners, they're corporate entities that are separate from the actual people and their values that are in it. So yes, I think it was a mistake for them to move, especially if they're still going to use some of our branding and our designs while they're in San Francisco. But that was a choice that they made based on more business interest than community interest, right? So again, that ship has already sailed. We have had to litigate a bit against some of these teams for leaving debts on our city, especially to renovate the Coliseum and arenas where they've moved from. But again, I'm grateful for the players and for people who are part of the team that still fell in love with our city, who live here, who have properties or business here, and who want to see Oakland at its best.
What about the African American Sports and Entertainment Group? Have you been in contact with Ray Bott about what they're doing down at the Coliseum? What do you think?
I'm very happy that we awarded the exclusive negotiating agreement to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. I think that in itself has made history, that we even have a Black group that is from Oakland that is trying to lead development in deep East Oakland, and one that is culturally responsive. They themselves are already proposing massive jobs plan, economic development, and having affordable housing and other things built alongside. So I'm really excited to see their proposals develop more now that they've been granted the exclusive negotiating rights. I hope that there will be partnerships with the A's, who still own portions of the property and again still play at that Coliseum site. I'm really excited around development in East Oakland, because East Oakland for so long has been completely devastated, forgotten. When I go to East Oakland, I ask them, when's the last time you saw the mayor? No one, not one time, has said that they've seen the mayor set foot in District 6 or District 7, right? That is shocking. Our city is not that large. You can drive through it in 10, 15 minutes. And for people who've lived here their whole lives to never physically seen their mayor in their neighborhoods, in their community, in 2 out of our 7 districts. But we also have our current Coliseum is in a tourist district. It's by our international airport. It's by our massive transit center at Coliseum, and it's underutilized. There's just fast food places. They're starting to rebuild and put in a few more restaurants where the Walmart closed down, but Walmart, its own that property has just been empty, right, and locked up for so long that we have large amounts of space there that is ripe for development. We have business parks there. I used to work for John Burris, who has his law firm right there off of the 66th Ave exit. And we have labor halls, we have the Alameda County Food Bank, we have, FedEx and other corporations that are headquartered there. But there's no like real type of cohesive environment for people to get lunch or to socialize or even walk over to see the games at the Coliseum. I want to uplift the East Oakland Collective that is going to be piloting a shuttle to get people from Eastmont Mall area to the MLK shoreline, one of my favorite parks in the entire city of Oakland, because it's very serene. It's not as packed as the lake, but it's way more expansive than the lake. Parking is never an issue. I can take my dogs out there and not have them run into a whole bunch of other pets that are trying to play and have fun. It's a beautiful space, but it's not accessible, even though it's really close to our transit area. So I'm looking forward to robust development. We even had a promise, I think, back in maybe 2015 of Coliseum City. Like we've had renderings and we've had so many town halls and discussions about what is needed in East Oakland. People want entertainment, right? They want food, they want grocery stores, they want accessibility to our green spaces in East Oakland. I'm hoping that a lot of this can be included in the African American Sports and Entertainment Group's proposal, or that they'll work with the A's and with the city to have a larger vision and cohesive plan. I'm hoping it will even expand public transit all the way up 73rd to MacArthur to Foothill, again, coming from the transit plaza at Eastmont Station. That we can have an even stronger cohesive network of transit to get people to these areas, to get people to housing that can be built in these areas. Right now, we have 2 city-sponsored encampments on lands that are right next to the Coliseum. One that's for youth, one that's for our seniors who are at risk of COVID. Right, again, hoping development can provide actual permanent and transitional housing. So I have a lot of thoughts around all the space and the infrastructure and how it can be improved and how we can actually develop East Oakland to be the tourist district that it should be.
Next time, out of respect for your time, we'll come back and we'll talk about homelessness, because now we have a new homeless representative for the city of Oakland announced 4 hours ago. It's on Oakland. It's on Oakland News Online, my other blog, by the way, oaklandnewsonline.com.
Check it out.
Yeah, top story. Hey, stick around in the background. That was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Yes, thank you again for having me.
You got it, definitely. Hey, everybody, subscribe to Zinni62, bookmark Oakland News Now, blog.com, oaklandnewsonline.com, and all that stuff.
Victoryforoakland.com.
You got it. Oh, by the way, tell them your website, please.
Yes. Victory for Oakland, FOR, not the number 4, victoryforoakland.com. I'm also accessible, available on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Victory for Oakland. So please follow me. You can sign up for our mailing list and get weekly newsletters directly to your inbox. And we're having a lot of events online and in person where you can meet me, talk to me, ask me questions, make sure they're the hard questions, and also just meet other fellow supporters.
Victoryforoakland.com, and I'm trying to make sure that for some particular, it's not coming up in my area here. Normally it comes up in the graphic. So that's interesting, folks. It says chat privately with your guests, and it may very well be because, did I hit something wrong? Yeah, I did. There's the comment. It's called brain damage, folks. Brain damage. Brain damage, twisted, right? Okay. All right. You ever watch Batman and wonder why, the 66 Batman, and wonder why the screen is tilted at points, Alyssa?
Why is it?
Because it shows, because it's always when the criminal is on, it shows the warped mind of the criminal. So if I tilt like this, my mind is warped. Anyway, here is
a little tilt in the back. I see your comment now.
Yeah. Victoryforoakland.com. That's our website, folks. Go to it. Check it out. We'll have you back. Hey, stick around in the background, folks, and we'll be back. Let's just stick around in the background. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Oakland Restaurant Week 2022. All right. That is this broadcast.